My fiancé accidentally sent me a voice memo meant for his sister, and what I heard about me made me leave the next morning with a plan he never saw coming. Some betrayals, they cut so deep they just carve out a new person entirely. And that new person, she knows exactly how to make the betrayer bleed. The rain hammered against my apartment window like angry fists. Each drop was a reminder of the storm that had been brewing inside me for 3 months. I sat there in the darkness, my apartment silent except for the storm and my own breathing, which didn't feel like my own. My phone glowed in my trembling hands. The voice memo that changed everything was still queued up, still echoing in my mind even though I wasn't playing it. 27 seconds. That's all it took. 27 seconds to shatter 5 years of my life and birth something darker, something hungrier for justice. I looked up, and my reflection stared back at me from the black, rain-streaked window. I didn't recognize the woman I saw. Hollow eyes. I unconsciously touched my throat, and I could still feel the phantom ache, the memory of bruises barely visible in the dim light. And I saw a smile. A smile that would have terrified me just hours ago. But I wasn't the same woman who had fallen asleep next to him last night. That woman was naive. She was broken, desperate for love, willing to shrink herself down to nothing just to keep him. This woman, the one in the reflection, she had a plan. The engagement ring sat on the coffee table like a discarded lie. Its diamond, the one I had cried over when he gave it to me, caught the occasional flash of lightning. Tomorrow, Warren Doyle would wake up to find me gone. But that would only be the beginning. Because what he said about me in that voice memo, what he really thought of me, what he'd been telling his sister, Corinne, behind my back, that required something far more devastating than just disappearing. I picked up my laptop. The familiar weight of it felt different, like a weapon. I opened a new document and began to type. The first email would go out at exactly 9 a.m. The second at noon. By evening, everyone would know who Warren Doyle really was. And by the time I was finished, he would understand that some women don't just break. They become unbreakable. And infinitely more dangerous. The thunder rolled overhead, a deep, angry growl that matched the feeling in my chest. And I smiled into the darkness. He had no idea what was coming. It's funny how your mind works, isn't it? Even in that moment of pure, cold rage, my mind flashed back. Back to just 6 months earlier. I thought I was living in a fairy tale then. I remember standing in the doorway of what would become our shared apartment on Riverside Drive. "You're going to love this place, Vera," Warren said. His arm was wrapped tight around my waist, and I leaned into his warmth, breathing in that familiar cologne, sandalwood, and something that was just him. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in this golden, hopeful light. Our first real home together. After 3 years of long-distance dating while he finished his MBA at Columbia, we were finally going to be in the same city, the same home. "It's perfect," I whispered, and I meant it. The hardwood floors gleamed. The kitchen had these granite countertops that reflected the light, and the bedroom had a view of the Hudson River that just took my breath away. Warren spun me around, his green eyes sparkling with the same excitement that was bubbling in my chest. "Perfect for my perfect girl," he said, pressing his forehead against mine. "I can't believe we're finally doing this." Neither could I. After years of late-night video calls, weekend visits that always ended in tearful goodbyes at the train station, and just counting down the days, it felt surreal to be standing in our apartment. Our space. Our future. The first month was everything I had dreamed it would be. He'd surprised me with coffee in bed, his dark hair still messy from sleep, that crooked smile that had made me fall for him in college spreading across his face. We'd cook dinner together. I remember one night, his hands were guiding mine as he taught me to make his grandmother's pasta sauce, the kitchen filling with the smell of garlic and basil. We'd fall asleep tangled together on the couch while watching old movies, and I'd wake up hours later with his favorite jacket draped over my shoulders. "I love you, Vera Sullivan," he'd whisper into my hair during those quiet moments. And my heart would flutter, just like it was the first time he'd ever said it. He proposed just 2 weeks after we'd moved in. It was on the roof of our building, under this perfect canopy of stars. He'd strung up fairy lights, and he got down on one knee. The ring was everything I'd dreamed of, a classic solitaire that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. I cried. I said yes, of course I said yes. I was going to marry the most wonderful man in the world. I was so sure. But fairy tales, I learned, have a way of revealing their true nature when you're not paying attention. The changes started small. So small, I convinced myself I was imagining them. They were like paper cuts. You don't notice them at first, but then you have 100 of them, and you're bleeding all over. It started with my clothes. I remember one evening, I emerged from the bedroom in a sundress I'd always loved. It was yellow, with tiny white flowers, something that just made me feel bright and happy. "You're wearing that to dinner?" Warren asked. He didn't look up from his phone at first, but his tone was off. I looked down at myself, suddenly self-conscious. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing's wrong," he said quickly, finally looking up. But his eyes lingered on the dress with something that looked like disappointment. "It's just, we're going to Meridian. It's a nice place. Maybe something a little more sophisticated." Sophisticated. I changed. I put on a little black cocktail dress, the kind that always made me feel like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. But Warren's face lit up when he saw me. He pulled me close for a kiss that tasted like approval. "There's my beautiful fiancé," he murmured against my lips. And the words, which had made me shiver with joy just a week before, now felt different. They felt conditional. I told myself it was fine. He just wanted me to look my best. He was proud of me. That's what you do in a relationship, right? You compromise. Then it was other things. We were at a work dinner for his new investment firm. I was talking to one of the partners about a marketing campaign I was proud of, one that had just won an award at my own job. I was excited, animated. Warren came up behind me, put his hand on the small of my back, and laughed. "Don't get Vera started on marketing, she'll talk your ear off," he said to the partner. And then to me, "Honey, why don't you go get us another round of drinks?" I felt my face flush. He just dismissed me, cut me off in front of his new boss. But I went. I got the drinks. Later, when I mentioned it, he brushed it off. "I was just joking, Vera. You're so sensitive. I was trying to include you in the conversation." But he hadn't included me. He'd turned me into the waitress. It was little things, too. He'd correct the way I told a story. No, it wasn't on a Tuesday, it was a Wednesday. He'd suggest I wear my hair differently. It looks so much classier when you pull it back. My makeup was too dramatic for day, too subtle for evening. The clothes I'd worn confidently for years suddenly seemed wrong through his eyes. Too casual, too formal, too bright, too boring. "I'm just trying to help you put your best foot forward," he'd say, when I'd get quiet after his suggestions. "You're so beautiful, Vera. I want everyone to see what I see." But I was starting to wonder what, exactly, he saw when he looked at me. The paper cuts started to feel deeper. More like a knife in the kitchen. At dinner, he started ordering for both of us without asking what I wanted. The first time he did it, I mentioned it later. He just laughed and said he was trying to take care of me. "You always take forever to decide anyway," he said, squeezing my hand across the table. "I know what you like." But he'd ordered salmon, and I hated salmon. I ate it anyway. I smiled and nodded as he talked about his new job at the investment firm, about the clients he was impressing, about the future he was building for us. Then came the money. The first time he raised his voice, I was so shocked, I actually stepped backward. He was staring at the credit card statement in his hand. $200 at Target, he snapped, his face flushing red. What the hell did you even buy, Vera? Groceries, I said, my voice smaller than I intended. And some things for the apartment. New towels, and… We already have towels, Vera, he cut me off. We don't need to waste money on things we don't need. I'm working my ass off to build something here, to boost my salary so we can have a future, and you're just throwing money away. He threw the statement on the counter, and I flinched at the sound. I'm sorry, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. I didn't think. That's the problem, he said. But his voice was softer now. He came over and reached for my hands. You don't think about how these things affect us, affect our future. His thumbs rubbed circles on my palms, and I felt myself relaxing, despite the knot in my stomach. I'm not mad at you, baby. I'm just stressed about money. You understand, right? I nodded. Of course I understood. He was working long hours, trying to prove himself at the firm. The pressure was getting to him. It wasn't really about the money. It was about the stress. But the next week, I bought groceries with cash from my own account, and he still found something to criticize. The bread was the wrong brand. The milk was too expensive. I was being wasteful, careless, thoughtless. Maybe you should just make a list before you go, he suggested, his arm around my shoulders as we put the groceries away, as if he were being helpful. Plan out the meals for the week. That way, you'll only buy what we actually need. So I did. I made lists. Detailed, organized lists that accounted for every meal, every snack, every household item we might need. I showed them to Warren before I went shopping, and he'd nod approvingly, like a teacher with a star pupil, and kiss my forehead. See? You're getting so much better at this, he'd say, and the praise would warm me from the inside out. I was being a good partner. I was helping him with his stress. But even with the lists, there was always something wrong. I bought the wrong brand of pasta sauce, not the one his grandmother used. I forgot to get the specific type of coffee he liked. I picked up bananas that were too ripe. Too green. Too expensive. It's like you're not even trying, he said one evening. I'd apparently bought the wrong kind of cheese for the lasagna he wanted to make. I asked for one simple thing, Vera, and you can't even get that right. The words hit me like a slap. I felt tears prick at my eyes. I am trying, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm trying so hard, Warren. His expression softened immediately. He pulled me into his arms. Hey, I'm sorry, he murmured into my hair. I didn't mean that. I'm just tired, and I took it out on you. That's not fair. I melted into his embrace, relief flooding through me. This was the Warren I'd fallen in love with. Gentle, apologetic, caring. The other Warren, the one who snapped and criticized and made me feel small, that wasn't really him. That was just stress. Just the pressure of his new job. Just the adjustment period of living together. I love you, he whispered. And I whispered it back, meaning it with every fiber of my being. But as the weeks passed, the gentle Warren appeared less and less. The other Warren, the one who found fault with everything I did, who made me second-guess every decision, who looked at me like I was a disappointment he was trying to fix, he became the norm. I started walking on eggshells. I analyzed every word before I spoke, every action before I took it. Would this make him angry? Would this disappoint him? Was I being thoughtless again, careless again, not good enough again? My friends started commenting on how quiet I'd become. My best friend, Sylvia, finally cornered me one night when we met for drinks. It was the first time I'd seen her in a month. You okay, Vera? She asked, her dark eyes studying my face with the intensity of someone who'd known me since college. You seem different. I'm fine, I said automatically. The response I'd perfected. Just tired from work. Are you happy? She asked, cutting right to the chase. With Warren, I mean. With the engagement. The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. Was I happy? I loved Warren. I was going to marry him. We were building a life together. Of course I was happy. Yes, I said, but the word felt strange in my mouth. Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? Sylvia shrugged, but her expression remained concerned. You just seem smaller lately, she said. Like you're trying to take up less space. Her words haunted me for days. Was I smaller? I found myself studying my reflection in the mirror, looking for signs of the person I used to be. The woman who'd graduated summa cum laude from NYU, who'd landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm, who'd once been confident enough to approach Warren at a college party and ask him to dance. Where had she gone? The answer came to me slowly, in pieces I didn't want to solve. She'd been disappearing bit by bit, criticism by criticism, correction by correction. Every time Warren told me I was wrong, I became a little less sure of myself. Every time he fixed something I'd done, I became a little more dependent on his approval. The bruises started 3 months before the voice memo. 3 months before everything changed. The first one was an accident. At least, that's what I told myself. We were arguing about something trivial, something I can't even remember now. I turned to walk away, to get some space, and Warren grabbed my wrist to stop me. His fingers dug into my skin with a desperation that surprised us both. Don't walk away from me when I'm talking to you, he said. His voice was low and dangerous, in a way I'd never heard before. I looked down at his hand on my wrist, at the white marks his fingers were leaving on my skin. Something cold settled in my stomach. You're hurting me, I said quietly. He released me immediately, his face cycling through shock, guilt, and something that might have been fear. God, Vera, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just. He ran his hands through his hair. When he looked at me again, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm so sorry. I would never hurt you. You know that, right? I nodded. Because I did know that. Warren loved me. He would never hurt me on purpose. It was an accident. A moment of frustration that got out of hand. But the bruises on my wrist told a different story. 5 small, dark marks that bloomed purple and yellow over the next few days. I covered them with long sleeves and bracelets. When Warren saw me doing it, his face crumpled with guilt. I hate myself for that, he said, pulling me into his arms. I hate that I hurt you, even accidentally. It will never happen again. I promise. And I believed him. The second time, he said I'd provoked him. I'd been nagging him about helping with the dishes, and when I followed him into the living room to continue the conversation, he spun around so quickly that his elbow caught me in the ribs. I gasped, the air knocked out of me. Maybe if you didn't follow me around like a lost puppy, these things wouldn't happen, he said. But his voice was gentle, almost sad. I need space to breathe, Vera. When you crowd me like that, I get claustrophobic. So, I learned. I learned to give him space. I learned to let arguments die. I learned to swallow my words, to bite my tongue, to make myself smaller and quieter and less likely to provoke him. The third time, there was no excuse. No accident, no provocation. I'd simply disagreed with him about whether to go to his company's holiday party or spend the evening with my family. And he'd backhanded me across the face so quickly, I didn't see it coming. The sound echoed through our apartment like a gunshot. We both froze, staring at each other in shock. My cheek burned. I could taste blood where my teeth had cut my lip. Vera, he breathed, reaching for me. I stepped back instinctively. Don't, I said, my voice shaking. Don't touch me. Baby, please, I didn't mean. You hit me. The words felt surreal coming out of my mouth. You hit me, Warren. His face crumpled. He sank onto the couch like his legs couldn't support him anymore. I know, he whispered. I know, and I hate myself for it. I don't know what's wrong with me. The stress at work, the pressure, it's making me crazy. He looked up at me, those green eyes I'd once thought were beautiful, now filled with tears and desperation. I'll get help, he said. I'll talk to someone. Figure out how to manage the stress better. This isn't who I am, Vera. You know this isn't who I am. And I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. Because if this wasn't who he was, then maybe we could fix it. Okay, I said finally. Okay, get help. Talk to someone. And if you ever hit me again. I won't, he said quickly. I swear to you, Vera, I will never lay a hand on you again. But even as he said it, even as I nodded and let him pull me into his arms, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that promises from men who hit the women they claim to love aren't worth the breath they're spoken with. I should have listened to that voice. I should have packed my bags that night. But I stayed. I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because leaving felt like admitting that the last 5 years of my life had been a lie. And I wasn't ready to face that truth. The night that changed everything started like any other. Warren was working late again. Or at least, that's what he told me. I'd stopped asking too many questions about his schedule months ago, after he'd snapped at me for being clingy and suspicious. I was curled up on our couch, a cup of chamomile tea growing cold on the coffee table beside me, trying to focus on the book in my lap. But the words kept blurring together. My mind kept wandering to the conversation we'd had that morning. I might be late tonight, Warren had said, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. Big presentation tomorrow. The team wants to run through it one more time. Okay, I'd said. Because that's what I always said. I'll keep dinner warm for you. He'd kissed my forehead. A brief, distracted press of lips that felt more like habit than affection. Don't wait up. This could go really late. So, I hadn't waited up. I'd eaten dinner alone, cleaned the kitchen alone, and settled in with my book alone. The silence in our apartment felt heavy, oppressive. My phone buzzed on the cushion beside me. I glanced at it, expecting to see a text from Warren. Instead, it was a notification for a voice memo. From Warren. My heart did a little skip of happiness. Maybe he was thinking of me. Maybe he'd sent me a sweet message, the way he used to when we were long distance. I picked up the phone and hit play. Warren's voice filled the quiet apartment. But something was wrong immediately. He sounded different. Relaxed, in a way he never was with me anymore. His voice carried this easy warmth I remembered from our early days. Hey, Corinne, he said. My blood turned to ice. Corinne. His sister. This wasn't meant for me. I should have stopped listening. I should have hung up immediately and pretended I'd never heard it. But something in his tone, something casual and unguarded, kept me frozen in place. So, I've been thinking about what you said last week, Warren continued. I could hear the sound of traffic in the background. He was walking somewhere. About Vera, I mean. My name on his lips made my stomach clench. What had Corinne said about me? You're right, Warren said, and his voice carried a note of resignation that made my hands start to shake. She's not. She's not who I thought she was when I proposed. Hell, she's not who I thought she was when we moved in together. The book slipped from my numb fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. I mean, don't get me wrong, he continued, oblivious to the fact that his words were tearing my world apart. She's sweet. She tries so hard to please me. It's almost pathetic, sometimes. But that's just it. She's pathetic. Pathetic. She has no backbone, no opinions of her own anymore. It's like living with a ghost. A ghost. He thought I was a ghost. Remember how she used to be in college? She was so confident, so sure of herself. She'd argue with professors, debate politics at parties, call me out when I was being an ass. I loved that about her. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and silent. I couldn't move. I had to hear it all. But now? God, she asks my permission for everything. What to wear, what to eat, what to watch on TV. She's turned herself into this perfect little housewife who never disagrees with me. And the worst part is, I think I did that to her. There was a pause. I could hear him sigh, a heavy, tired sound. I know I've been difficult lately. The stress at work, the pressure to succeed. I've been taking it out on her, and she just takes it. She apologizes for things that aren't her fault. Walks on eggshells around me. Flinches when I move too fast. Christ, Corinne, I made her flinch. What kind of man does that make me? The kind who hits women, I thought bitterly. The kind who breaks them down piece by piece. But here's the thing, he continued, and his voice hardened in a way that made my blood run cold. I can't respect someone who won't stand up for themselves. I can't love someone who's so desperate for my approval that they'll change everything about themselves to get it. It's disgusting. Honestly. Disgusting. I was disgusting to him. So, yeah. You're right. I need to end it. I just don't know how. She's so fragile now, so dependent on me. If I break up with her, she'll probably fall apart completely. And then there's the apartment, the ring, all the plans. Look, I'm at Murphy's now. We'll talk more about this later, okay? But you're right. I can't marry someone I don't respect. I just need to figure out how to let her down easy. The voice memo ended. 27 seconds. That's all it was. 27 seconds to destroy my world and reveal the truth. He didn't love me. He didn't even respect me. I was pathetic to him. Disgusting. A ghost. And he was planning to leave me, not because he was abusive, but because I wasn't strong enough for him anymore. Because I'd let him break me. And now he was disgusted by the broken pieces. The rage that filled me then was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It started as a cold knot in my stomach and spread outward like poison, burning through my veins until every cell in my body was screaming for justice. He'd done this to me. He'd systematically torn down my confidence, my independence, my sense of self, until I was exactly what he described, a pathetic ghost who lived for his approval. And now he had the audacity to be disgusted by his own handiwork. I thought about all the times I'd apologized for things that weren't my fault. All the times I'd changed my clothes. All the times I'd swallowed my words, my opinions, my very self, because I was so desperate to keep him happy. I thought about the bruises I'd hidden, the excuses I'd made, the friends I'd stopped seeing because Warren didn't like them. I thought about the woman I used to be, and how completely she'd disappeared. But she wasn't gone. I realized that now. She was just buried. And listening to Warren's casual cruelty, I could feel her clawing her way back to the surface. My phone buzzed. A text from Warren. Working late. Don't wait up. I stared at the message. Then I typed back, okay. Love you. But as I hit send, I was already planning. Because Warren Doyle had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated the woman he'd tried so hard to destroy. He thought I was weak. He thought I was broken. He thought I'd fall apart. He had no idea that some women don't break. They transform. I picked up my laptop and began to research. His company. His coworkers. His clients. His social media. His family. His friends. Every detail of the life he'd built, the reputation he was so proud of, the future he was planning without me. By the time he came home at 2 a.m., reeking of alcohol and barely able to walk straight, I was ready. "Hey, baby," he slurred, stumbling into the bedroom where I was pretending to sleep. "Sorry, I'm so late." "You know how it is." "I know exactly how it is," I murmured into my pillow. But he was already passed out beside me, snoring loudly. I lay awake for the rest of the night, staring at the ceiling, perfecting my plan. By morning, I had every detail mapped out. Every move calculated. Every consequence considered. Warren Doyle thought he knew me. He thought he'd broken me. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I woke up before dawn. My body moved with a purpose I hadn't felt in months. Warren was still unconscious beside me, his face slack with sleep and alcohol, completely unaware that the woman lying next to him was no longer the broken creature he'd been planning to discard. The first step was the hardest. Leaving. Not because I would miss him, God, no. But because walking away meant acknowledging that the last 5 years of my life had been built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. It meant admitting that I'd lost myself so completely that I'd become unrecognizable. But as I moved quietly through our apartment, gathering the few things that were truly mine, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long, long time: clarity. I packed light. A suitcase with enough clothes for a week. My laptop. My important documents. And the small jewelry box my grandmother had left me. It was part of my small inheritance from her, and the only thing in this apartment that Warren had never criticized or tried to change. Everything else could stay. The furniture we'd picked out together. The kitchen gadgets he'd insisted we needed. The engagement ring that had once represented my dreams. It was all tainted now. I left the ring on his nightstand, right where he'd see it immediately upon waking. No note. No explanation. Just the diamond solitaire that had once made me feel chosen, special, loved. Now it just looked like what it had always been, a beautiful lie. My hands were steady as I called a cab. My voice was calm as I gave the driver the address of an extended stay hotel I'd booked online an hour before. I'd paid for a month in advance using a credit card Warren didn't know about. The one I'd opened secretly after he'd started monitoring our joint account so closely, questioning every single charge. The old Vera would have felt guilty about the deception. This Vera felt nothing but satisfaction. As the cab pulled away from Riverside Drive, I allowed myself one look back at the building that had been my prison for the past year. Warren was probably still sleeping off his hangover, blissfully unaware that his pathetic fiancé had just walked out of his life forever. But leaving was only the beginning. The hotel room was small but clean, with a view of the city that reminded me of possibilities rather than limitations. I set up my laptop on the small desk and began phase 2 of my plan, the research. Warren Doyle, 28, senior associate at Hartwell & Associates investment firm. Graduate of Columbia Business School. Son of Taylor and Linda Doyle of Greenwich, Connecticut. Brother to Corinne Doyle, a pediatric surgeon in Boston. I knew these facts. But now I was looking at them through different eyes. Not as the loving fiancé who was proud of his accomplishments, but as someone who understood that reputation was everything to a man like Warren. His career. His social standing. His carefully cultivated image of success. These were the things he valued most. These were the things I was going to destroy. I started with his company. Hartwell & Associates prided itself on integrity, family values, and ethical business practices. Their website featured smiling photos of diverse employees, testimonials about work-life balance, and a prominent section about their zero-tolerance policy for harassment and domestic violence. How interesting. I spent the morning crafting emails. These weren't angry, emotional rants that could be dismissed as the ravings of a bitter ex. They were carefully worded, professional communications that painted a picture of a man whose private behavior was completely at odds with the company's stated values. The first email went to Warren's direct supervisor, a woman named Ms. Delia Patton. Her LinkedIn profile showed her posing with her husband and 2 young daughters at a charity run for domestic violence awareness. Perfect. Dear Ms. Patton, I wrote. I hope this email finds you well. My name is Vera Sullivan, and until this morning, I was engaged to your employee, Warren Doyle. I am writing to inform you of some concerning behavior that I believe conflicts with Hartwell and Associates' stated commitment to ethical conduct and employee integrity. Over the past year, Mr. Doyle has engaged in a pattern of psychological and physical abuse that has escalated significantly in recent months. I have documentation of these incidents, including photographs of injuries and recordings of threatening behavior. I didn't have recordings of the abuse, but he didn't know that. And the voice memo proved his character. While I understand that personal matters don't always reflect on professional conduct, I continued, I felt it was important to bring this to your attention given the nature of Mr. Doyle's role in client relations and his representation of your company's values. I am not seeking any specific action at this time, merely ensuring that you have all relevant information about an employee who regularly interacts with clients and colleagues. I trust you will handle this information with the discretion and seriousness it deserves. Sincerely, Vera Sullivan. I attached a single photograph, one I'd taken of the bruises on my wrist after that first accident. I told myself at the time that I was documenting it for my own peace of mind, never imagining I'd actually use it. The old Vera had been smarter than I'd given her credit for. The second email went to the HR department, with copies to several senior partners. The third went to the client Warren had been bragging about landing, a family foundation that funded women's shelters. By noon, I'd sent 12 carefully crafted emails to various people in Warren's professional orbit. Not enough to seem like a coordinated attack, but enough to ensure that whispers would start circulating. Questions would be asked. His reputation would begin to crack. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Phase 3 involved social media. This required a more delicate touch. Warren was active on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, carefully curating an image of professional success and personal happiness. Photos of us at company events, vacation pictures from our trip to Napa, posts about his promotion and our engagement. I couldn't attack him directly. That would make me look unstable, vindictive. Instead, I began a subtle campaign of truth-telling. I started by updating my own profiles. I changed my relationship status from engaged to single. I removed Warren from my profile picture. And I posted a simple status update, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Within an hour, the comments started pouring in. Friends who'd noticed I'd seemed different. Family members who'd never quite warmed to Warren. College acquaintances who remembered the confident woman I used to be. Are you okay, honey? My cousin wrote. If you need anything, I'm here. So proud of you for putting yourself first, commented my old roommate from NYU. You deserve so much better. And my best friend, Sylvia, about time. I could practically hear the relief in her voice, even through the screen. I responded to each comment with grace and gratitude, never mentioning Warren by name, never airing dirty laundry. But the message was clear. I had left him. And the people who knew me best were relieved. By evening, my phone was buzzing constantly. I let most calls go to voicemail, but I knew I had to answer when I saw his name. At 11:47 p.m., Warren flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. The message was exactly what I expected, confusion masquerading as concern, with an undertone of irritation. Vera, what the hell? I wake up and you're gone. Your ring is on the nightstand, and you won't answer your phone. Look, I know we've been having some problems lately, but this is crazy. Just call me back, okay? We can work this out. We always do. We always do. As if working things out hadn't always meant me apologizing, me changing, me shrinking. I deleted it. The second call came 20 minutes later. This time I answered. Vera, thank God. Where are you? Are you okay? His voice was different now. Higher. More frantic. The emails had probably started to land. I'm fine, Warren, I said, my voice calm and steady. Better than I've been in months, actually. What's going on? Why did you leave? And why the hell are people from my office calling me, asking about? He stopped. Asking about what? I prompted, sweetly. You know what, he said, and now his voice had the edge I knew so well. What did you tell them, Vera? I told them the truth. The silence on the line was heavy. I could practically hear him calculating. The truth, he finally said, trying for that old, charming tone. Come on, baby. You're upset. I get it. We've both been under a lot of stress. But don't you think you're being a little dramatic? Dramatic. There was the word. Am I being dramatic, Warren? Or am I finally being honest? Honest about what? We had some fights, sure, but... You hit me, I said quietly. The words hung in the air like a blade. Another silence. Longer this time. That was an accident, he said. You know that. Which time? I interrupted. The first time, when you grabbed my wrist so hard you left bruises? The second time, when your elbow happened to catch my ribs? Or the third time, when you backhanded me across the face? I could hear his breathing, sharp and panicked. I have pictures, Warren. Time-stamped photos. I also have recordings. This was a lie. But he didn't know that. The fear in his voice was delicious. Recordings of what? Of you. Of the things you say when you think I'm too broken to fight back. Of the way you talk about me when you think I can't hear. Like the voice memo, I thought. But I wasn't ready to play that card. Look, he said, full damage control mode now. I know I haven't been perfect. The stress, the pressure. But I love you, Vera. We can get through this. I'll get help. You'll what? I laughed, and the sound was sharp. Go to therapy? Promise to change? Tell me how sorry you are? I've heard this song before, Warren. I'm not interested in the encore. So what? You're just going to destroy my career? My entire life? That's insane, Vera. That's not who you are. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel. You're right, I said. The woman you've been living with for the past year isn't vindictive or cruel. She's pathetic and desperate and so broken down that she disgusts even the man who claims to love her. I heard his sharp intake of breath. He knew. He knew I'd heard it. But here's the thing, Warren, I continued. That woman isn't who I really am. She's who you made me. And now that I remember who I actually am, I find that I'm very interested in making sure you face some consequences for what you've done. Good night. I hung up before he could respond and immediately blocked his number. The next morning brought exactly what I'd hoped for, chaos. I woke up to 17 missed calls from blocked numbers. Warren was getting desperate. But more importantly, my carefully planted seeds were sprouting. The first sign came in the form of a LinkedIn notification. Warren had been tagged in a group photo from a team-building event, but his face had been conspicuously cropped out. Subtle, but telling. By 10 a.m., he was calling me from his office line. I let it go to voicemail. Vera, I know you're getting these. His voice was frantic. Delia Patton called me into her office this morning. They're putting me on administrative leave, pending an investigation. An investigation, Vera? Do you understand what this means for my career? Oh, I understood perfectly. The next message was angrier. This is insane. You can't just destroy someone's life because you're upset about a breakup. I have rights, Vera. I could get a lawyer. The irony was delicious. But it was the third message that made me smile. His voice was smaller, more vulnerable. Please, Vera. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But this is going to ruin everything. Can't we just talk? No. We couldn't. Then, at 3 p.m., my phone rang. An unknown number from a Connecticut area code. Greenwich. Warren's parents. I answered. Vera, dear? It's Linda Doyle. Her voice was strained, carefully polite. I hope you don't mind me calling. Of course not, Mrs. Doyle. How are you? Well, I've been better, to be honest. Warren told us about the situation. About your engagement ending. Yes, I said simply. He also mentioned there might be some misunderstandings. Some things that might affect his job. Misunderstandings. That was one way to put it. I'm not sure what Warren told you, I said carefully. But I haven't misunderstood anything. I've simply been honest about my experiences. There was a long pause. Linda Doyle was a smart woman. Vera, she said finally, her voice softer. Did my son hurt you? The question hung in the air. The old Vera would have protected him, made excuses. But the old Vera was gone. Yes, I said quietly. He did. I heard her sharp intake of breath. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. We raised him better than this. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected, validation. His own mother believed me. But the day wasn't over. At 6 p.m., a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Café Luna on 42nd Street. 1 hour. Come alone. Corinne. Warren's sister. The one he'd sent the memo to. This could be a trap. She was probably coming to defend him, to attack me. But it was also an opportunity. She was the one who knew. I grabbed my coat. Café Luna was crowded. I spotted her immediately. She had Warren's green eyes, but where his were cruel, hers looked concerned. She stood up when she saw me, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. Vera, she said, her voice thick. Thank you for coming. Your brother sent you, didn't he? I said, sliding into the booth. Her laugh was bitter. Warren doesn't know I'm here. If he did, he'd probably never speak to me again. She took a shaky sip of coffee. I came because I owe you an apology. A huge one. This wasn't what I'd expected. For what? For not speaking up sooner. For not seeing what was happening. She took a deep breath. For encouraging him to leave you instead of encouraging him to get help. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Warren's been calling me for months, she said, her hands shaking. Complaining about you. How you'd changed. How you were needy, and clingy, and pathetic. The word hung in the air, vile and sharp. At first, I told him relationships are hard. But then I saw you at Mom and Dad's anniversary party last month. Do you remember? I did. I'd been on eggshells all night. You were so quiet, Corinne said. So small. You barely spoke. And you kept looking at Warren like you were asking for permission. And when he snapped at you for spilling a little wine, the way you flinched, Vera. I've never seen you flinch. You used to be so confident. She was crying now. I went home and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm a doctor, Vera. I'm a mandated reporter. I see the signs of abuse in my patients' families. I know what it looks like when someone is being systematically broken down. And I realized that's exactly what he'd done to you. She told me she confronted him, and he'd gotten angry, defensive, called me manipulative. But the more defensive he got, she said, the more I knew. There's something else, I said quietly. I pulled out my phone. I played the voice memo. Corinne's face went white as she listened to her brother's casual cruelty. Oh my God, she whispered when it ended. Oh my God, Vera. Here's the thing, she said, her eyes flashing with a sudden, fierce anger. I want to help you. How? She pulled out her own phone. Warren doesn't know this. But I've been recording our conversations for the past month. Ever since I started suspecting. I have hours of recordings, Vera. Him talking about you. Him admitting things. Things that show exactly who he really is. I stared at the phone. You'd share those? I'd do more than that, she said. I'd be willing to testify. But there's something else. Her voice dropped. You weren't the first. There was a girl in college. Rosalie. They dated for a year. And toward the end, she changed. Became quiet, withdrawn. Then she just broke up with him, disappeared. Changed her name, moved across the country. At the time, we all thought she was the crazy one. But now I think Warren has been doing this for years. If you are still listening, please help me out by liking this video and commenting the number 1 down below. It lets me know that you're here, that you're this amazing, supportive family. And honestly, it means the world to me to know you're on this journey with me. Your support is a huge encouragement, it really keeps me going. So please, comment the number 1 so I can see you, and now, let me tell you what happened next. I left that cafe with a new, terrifying resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Rosalie. And who knew how many others. The next 3 days were a blur. The house of cards didn't just fall, it was obliterated. First, the call from Ms. Delia Patton at Hartwell and Associates. Miss Sullivan, she said, her voice professional but warm. I wanted to update you. Based on your complaint, and several others that have come to light, we have decided to terminate Mr. Doyle's employment, effective immediately. We've also reported our findings to the appropriate authorities, as some of the allegations suggest criminal behavior. Others. Plural. My God. Second, the call from Detective Maria Santos, NYPD Special Victims Unit. Miss Sullivan, I understand you've made allegations against a Warren Doyle regarding domestic violence. I'd like to schedule a time to speak with you about pressing formal charges. Yes, I said, my hand shaking, but not with fear. With anticipation. Yes, I'd like that very much. And third, the most satisfying call of all. An unknown number with a California area code. Is this Vera Sullivan? The voice was soft, hesitant. Yes, this is. My name is Rosalie Martinez. I used to be Rosalie Walsh. I got your email. My heart stopped. I had spent 2 days digging, using skills I didn't know I had, to find her. Rosalie, I breathed. Thank you for calling. I almost didn't, she admitted, her voice breaking. I've spent 8 years trying to forget Warren Doyle ever existed. But when I read your email, when I saw that he'd done to you what he did to me, I couldn't stay silent anymore. We talked for 2 hours. Her story was mine, but worse. The control, the isolation, the violence. He broke my arm, she said quietly. Claimed it was an accident, that I'd fallen down the stairs. But I knew. I knew he'd pushed me. And I knew if I stayed, it would only get worse. Why didn't you report it? I asked. Because I was 21, she said. And terrified. And convinced it was somehow my fault. Who would have believed me? I believe you, I said. And I think a lot of other people will, too. He's lost his job. He's under criminal investigation. I want to help, Rosalie said, her voice suddenly strong. I want to testify. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of letting him win. By the end of the week, Warren's situation had gone from bad to catastrophic. The story had been picked up by a local news blog. Investment firm fires employee after multiple domestic violence allegations. His LinkedIn profile disappeared. His Instagram went private. But the most devastating blow came from his own parents. I was having coffee with Corinne, who had become my rock, when her mother, Linda, called. Corinne put her on speaker. Mom? Corinne answered. What's wrong? We've asked Warren to leave the house, Linda said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. We can't have him here anymore. Not after what we've learned. What do you mean? Corinne asked. We hired a private investigator, Linda said. After Vera told me what he'd done, we needed to know the truth. She took a shaky breath. And there have been others, Corinne. Not just Rosalie and Vera. At least 3 other women over the years. The investigator found police reports that were never filed. Hospital records with suspicious explanations. We've also discovered financial irregularities. Money missing from accounts. Credit cards opened in other people's names. Warren hasn't just been abusing women, Corinne. He's been stealing from them. Financial abuse. Another layer I hadn't even considered. We're cutting him off completely, Linda said, her voice growing stronger. No more money. No more support. No more excuses. We've also decided we're establishing a foundation. In Vera's honor. And Rosalie's. And all the other women whose names we may never know. We're going to fund domestic violence shelters and legal aid for abuse survivors. I was openly weeping. Blake's own parents were not only holding him accountable, they were actively working to help his victims. Mom, Corinne said softly. I'm proud of you. It's not easy, Linda admitted. But it's necessary. We failed those women by raising a son who could do such things. The least we can do now is try to make amends. The final piece came together the following Monday. Detective Santos called with an update. We've arrested Warren Doyle, she said without preamble. Multiple charges, including assault, battery, stalking, and financial fraud. Bail has been set at $500,000. Will he make bail? I asked. Unlikely, she said. His assets have been frozen pending the financial investigation. And his family has made it clear they won't be posting bond. He'll be staying in custody until trial. Warren Doyle. The man who had once seemed so powerful, so untouchable. The man who had made me feel small and worthless. He was sitting in a jail cell. A few days later, I received a letter, forwarded from my old address. He had written to me from jail. Vera, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I need you to understand something. I never meant for things to go this far. I never meant to hurt you. I've been doing a lot of thinking in here, and I realize now that I was sick. The pressure, the stress, the need to control everything, it made me into someone I didn't recognize. Someone I hate. I know I can't undo what I did. To you, to Rosalie, to the others. I know I can't take back the pain. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to visit me. I just need you to know that you were right to leave. You were right to speak up. You were right to make sure I faced consequences. You saved yourself, and you probably saved other women, too. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. And I'm sorry it took me losing everything to see that. I hope you can find peace. I hope you can heal. I'm sorry. Warren. I read the letter 3 times, looking for manipulation. But all I found was what seemed like genuine remorse. It didn't change anything. It didn't undo the abuse. But it did give me something I hadn't expected. Closure. He finally understood. He finally saw me. And he finally faced the consequences of his choices. 6 months later, I stood in the bathroom of my new apartment, looking at my reflection. The woman staring back at me was someone I barely recognized, but this time, it was for all the right reasons. My hair was shorter, in a style I liked. My eyes were clear. The bruises, visible and invisible, had faded. The apartment was mine. A small one-bedroom in Brooklyn with exposed brick walls and big, sunny windows. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every book, had been chosen by me, for me. The criminal trial had been difficult, but satisfying. Warren had pled guilty to multiple charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 5 years in prison, followed by mandatory counseling and a permanent restraining order against contacting any of his victims, including me and Rosalie. We'd become friends, bonding over our shared experience and our commitment to healing. My phone buzzed. A text from my old college friend, Preston. He had been Warren's roommate. "Hey Vera," it read. "Just wanted to let you know, that group I'm starting, the one for men who want to be better allies? It's full. We have a waiting list. Thank you for helping me see the ripple effect." It was working. Tonight was the launch of the Linda Doyle Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors. I'd been asked to speak. The old Vera would have been terrified. But this Vera, the one who had found her voice again, was looking forward to it. I walked to the podium, my steps steady. I looked out at the audience, Corinne and her parents, Rosalie, Detective Santos, my friend Sylvia. "My name is Vera Sullivan," I began. "And I'm here tonight not as a victim, but as a survivor. I'm here to tell you that abuse doesn't always leave visible scars. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of your confidence, the way love gets weaponized against you. I was told I was pathetic. That I was disgusting. And I almost believed it. I could have left silently. I could have taken my broken pieces and tried to put them back together in private. But I realized that my silence would be his protection. My shame would be his shield. And I refused to give him that gift. The applause was thunderous. After the dinner, as I was leaving, a young woman approached me. She looked to be in her early 20s, with dark circles under her eyes that I recognized immediately. "Miss Sullivan," she said quietly. "I'm sorry to bother you. But, thank you for your speech. I think I might be in a situation like yours was. With my boyfriend. I've been making excuses, telling myself it's not that bad. But listening to you tonight." Her eyes filled with tears. "It is that bad, isn't it? When they make you feel crazy for having feelings? When they control who you see? That's not normal, is it? No, I said, taking her hand. It's not normal. And it's not your fault. And you deserve so much better. I spent the next hour talking with her, connecting her with resources, giving her the number for a local shelter. As I watched her walk away, I felt a deep, profound satisfaction. This was why. This was why I'd fought back. Not just for me, but for her. Warren Doyle had tried to destroy me. But instead, he'd created something he never could have imagined. A woman who was unbreakable, unsilenceable, and absolutely committed to making sure no one else suffered the way I did. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. It means so much to me to be able to share this, to feel this support from all of you. If you've ever been through anything like this, or if this story touched you, please share your own thoughts in the comments. Let's support each other. Please like and subscribe so we can keep this community growing. I'll see you in the next video. And so, this story reminds us of a profound truth: strength is not measured by how much we endure but by the courage we summon to reclaim ourselves. Vera's journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, showing that even in the darkest moments, we hold the power to rise, rebuild, and transform pain into purpose. Her story teaches us that self-worth is not defined by someone else's approval, but by the unwavering belief that we deserve respect, love, and freedom. It is a call to action for all of us, not just to recognize our own value but to support those around us who may be silently struggling. Abuse thrives in silence, but healing begins when we choose to speak out, to believe survivors, and to stand together against injustice. This isn't just Vera's victory, it's a victory for everyone who dares to break free and create a better future. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Share your thoughts in the comments or simply type good if you found value in this lesson. Let's continue to inspire and uplift one another. Together, we can make a difference.